This is Land of Havilah, Jeremiah 38. Coming up, 5 influential men think Jeremiah is a public threat. They'll urge the king to put him to death. Verse 1. Shephatiah the son of Mattan, and Gedaliah the son of Pashur, and Jucal the son of Shelemiah, and Pashur the son of Malchijah, heard the words that Jeremiah spoke to all the people, saying, Yahweh says, He who remains in this city will die by the sword, by the famine, and by the pestilence. But he who goes out to the Chaldeans will live and will escape with his life, and he'll live. Yahweh says, This city will surely be given into the hand of the army of the king of Babylon, and he'll take it. Then the princes said to the king, Please let this man be put to death, because he weakens the hands of the men of war who remain in this city, and the hands of all the people in speaking such words to them. For this man doesn't seek the welfare of this people, but harm. Zedekiah the king said, Behold, he's in your hand, for the king can't do anything to oppose you. Then took they Jeremiah and threw him into the dungeon of Malchijah the king's son, that was in the court of the guard. They let down Jeremiah with cords. In the dungeon there was no water, but mire, and Jeremiah sank in the mire. Comment in verse 1, 5 powerful men wanted Jeremiah dead because he's been preaching surrender. How is it that the king lets Jeremiah live when he says every man, woman, and child should leave the city and surrender, and that he's saying publicly anyone who remains in the city will die from the sword, famine, and disease, but he who goes out to the Chaldeans will live, and that he says, Surely Yahweh will give this city to the king of Babylon, and he'll take it. This deserves death, they say, because Jeremiah weakens the public morale. He's an enemy. In verse 5, the king told the 5, He's in your hand, which means do whatever you want with him. And he said, I can't do anything to oppose you, which is striking. He's losing control of the kingdom because of famine, pestilence, and chaos. In verse 6, they put him in the dungeon of Malchijah, the king's son. The dungeon was a pit filled with mire. His feet sank in the mire. It was probably the toilet of the court of the guard and doubled as a torture chamber. They were going to leave him there to die slowly because death was their intention in verse 4. Verse 7. Now when Ebed-melech the Ethiopian, a eunuch who was in the king's house, heard that they had put Jeremiah in the dungeon, the king was then sitting in Benjamin's gate, Ebed-melech went out of the king's house and spoke to the king, saying, My lord the king, these men have done evil in all that they've done to Jeremiah the prophet, whom they've cast into the dungeon. He's likely to die in the place where he is because of the famine, for there's no more bread in the city. Comment in verses 7 and 9, Ebed-melech is Hebrew for servant of the king. This was both his occupation and his name for purposes of the text. He was an Ethiopian eunuch. By the way, why is it that kings kept eunuchs, 2 Kings 8:6, Esther 2:3, and other places? Maybe because eunuchs weren't distracted with family and had no concerns other than their own affairs and the king's affairs. Ebed-melech heard Jeremiah was in the pit, was afraid for his life, and went to the king about it. The king was sitting in Benjamin's gate, which was an entrance to the city on the north side facing the land of Benjamin. Ebed-melech found the king in the gate and said, My lord the king, these men have done evil putting Jeremiah the prophet in the pit. He's likely to die there because of the famine. There's no more bread in the city. We should probably take that to mean there was no more bread publicly available, and that maybe there was still some secret bread, but who would feed a prisoner under these conditions? Coming up, even though the king told the 5 men to do whatever they wanted, now he'll change his mind. Ebed-melech has talked him into saving Jeremiah. Verse 10. Then the king commanded Ebed-melech the Ethiopian, saying, Take from here 30 men with you, and take up Jeremiah the prophet out of the dungeon before he dies. Comment 30 men seems like overkill to get Jeremiah out of the dungeon, but it's another sign that the king's losing his power amid the chaos. It's going to take 30 men just to make sure this order to free Jeremiah is obeyed. Verse 11. So Ebed-melech took the men with him and went into the house of the king under the treasury, and took from there rags and worn-out garments, and let them down by cords into the dungeon to Jeremiah. Comment in verse 11, there was a room in the king's house with old clothing and rags. It was under the treasury, so maybe it was a basement room. Ebed-melech and the 30 went there, got some material for padding, went to the pit, and let the padding down by ropes. Verse 12. Ebed-melech the Ethiopian said to Jeremiah, Now put these rags and worn-out garments under your armpits, under the cords. Jeremiah did so. So they drew up Jeremiah with the cords and took him up out of the dungeon, and Jeremiah remained in the court of the guard. Comment in verses 12 and 13, they let down the ropes and padding, told Jeremiah to put the ropes under his armpits and to pad the ropes, and they lifted him out. Coming up, the king will call for Jeremiah to meet with him at one of the gates of Yahweh's house. It'll be clear coming up that no one overheard the conversation. Verse 14. Then Zedekiah the king sent and took Jeremiah the prophet to himself into the third entry that is in Yahweh's house. Then the king said to Jeremiah, I'll ask you something. Hide nothing from me. Then Jeremiah said to Zedekiah, If I declare it to you, will you not surely put me to death? If I give you counsel, you'll not listen to me. Comment in verse 14, the king sent for Jeremiah to meet him at a certain one of the gates to the temple courtyard. Jeremiah had to be brought there by the guard because he's their prisoner, confined to the court of the guard. So word got out that this meeting took place. It had to get out, but the king took Jeremiah to himself in verse 14, meaning he pulled Jeremiah off to the side so he could speak with him privately. That'll be abundantly clear momentarily. The king told Jeremiah he wanted to ask him a question. Jeremiah said, If I answer, won't you kill me? And besides, if I give you counsel, you won't even take it. Verse 16. So Zedekiah the king swore secretly to Jeremiah, saying, As Yahweh lives, who made us this soul, I will not put you to death, neither will I give you into the hand of these men who seek your life. Comment, Zedekiah swears by Yahweh that if Jeremiah will answer him, he won't kill him or hand him over to anyone else who would kill him. Coming up, Jeremiah will answer. His answer will be something he's been saying all along. Verse 17. Then Jeremiah said to Zedekiah, Yahweh, the God of armies, the God of Israel, says, If you go out to the king of Babylon's princes, then your soul will live, and this city will not be burned with fire. You'll live along with your house. But if you will not go out to the king of Babylon's princes, then this city will be given into the hand of the Chaldeans, and they'll burn it with fire, and you won't escape out of their hand. Comment in verses 17 and 18, Jeremiah said from Yahweh, If you surrender, your soul will live, and the city won't burn. But if you don't, you'll be captured, and the city will burn. Verse 19. Zedekiah the king said to Jeremiah, I'm afraid of the Jews who have defected to the Chaldeans, lest they deliver me into their hand, and they mock me. But Jeremiah said, They won't deliver you. Obey, I beg you, Yahweh's voice in that which I speak to you, so it will be well with you, and your soul will live. But if you refuse to go out, this is the word that Yahweh has shown me. Behold, all the women who are left in the king of Judah's house will be brought out to the king of Babylon's princes, and those women will say, Your familiar friends have turned on you and have prevailed over you. Your feet are sunk in the mire, they have turned away from you. They'll bring out all your wives and your children to the Chaldeans. You won't escape out of their hand, but will be taken by the hand of the king of Babylon. You'll cause this city to be burned with fire. Comment in verse 19, Zedekiah says he's afraid to surrender because the Babylonians might put him with the common Jews who have already surrendered, and they'll mock him. They'll give him no respect. It's a fate worse than death. In verses 20 to 23, Jeremiah says, Don't worry about being put with the other captives. That won't happen. I beg you, O king, obey Yahweh and live. If you refuse to go out, I've already told you what will happen. But in addition, Yahweh says, all your women who are left in your house, who haven't died from famine and pestilence yet, they'll be brought out to Nebuchadnezzar's men. That's when you'll be mocked. Your women will say that everyone you thought was loyal has turned on you. They'll say you've been defeated, that you've sunk in the mire, never to rise again. They'll know that they have no future with you. They'll turn their hearts away from you and take up with Nebuchadnezzar's men if they're able. Furthermore, O king, in verse 23, Yahweh says they'll bring out your children to the Chaldeans, and for you personally, you will not escape, and you'll cause the city to be burned. Coming up, the idea of it all is so embarrassing that, verse 24. Then Zedekiah said to Jeremiah, Let no man know of these words, and you won't die. But if the princes hear that I've talked with you, and they come to you and tell you, Declare to us now what you've said to the king. Don't hide it from us, and we'll not put you to death. Also tell us what the king said to you. Then you shall tell them, I presented my supplication before the king that he would not cause me to return to Jonathan's house to die there. Comment in verses 24 and 25, Zedekiah said to Jeremiah, I said I wouldn't kill you over this, but I will if you tell it to anyone. If someone says, Tell me what you and the king were talking about, even if they say, I'll kill you if you don't tell it, just say you were begging me not to send you back to Jonathan's house, because that would be a death sentence. Verse 27. Then all the princes came to Jeremiah and asked him, and he told them according to all these words that the king had commanded. So they stopped speaking with them, for the matter was not perceived. So Jeremiah stayed in the court of the guard until the day that Jerusalem was taken. Comment in verse 27, as predicted, all the king's men came to Jeremiah wanting to know what he and the king talked about. Jeremiah said, I asked him not to send me back to Jonathan's house because I would die there. He probably had asked that, so he wasn't lying, and it was believable that there was nothing more to it, so they left him alone, and they never learned the part that was so embarrassing to the king. In verse 24, Jeremiah was able to stay in the court of the guard until the day Jerusalem fell. Yahweh is working everything out to protect Jeremiah, as he said he would in chapter 1. Jeremiah 39 is next.